Network with Stuart Brisgell and David Solomon every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern. You think about it, we rant about it. Listen to us live on Facebook.
What's up, everybody? It is June 9th, Wednesday, hump day. My name is Stuart Brisgell. I'm in South Florida, and that's sipping David Solomon over there in Montreal, Quebec. And today, David, what are we ranting about?
Stuart, I'm actually incredibly surprised by the mentality of the institutions today and our employment world. And once upon a time, your post-secondary education was so important, and now, apparently it isn't. So let's talk a little bit about what I'm talking. What's up on screen here, folks, and that is bye-bye 4-year degrees. Canadian companies want you to work faster. Basically, there's a skill shortage. And Canadian companies are, simply put, saying, we don't care anymore. You guys come to us. We'll train you on site. So now I'm thinking about all those years, Stuart, where we went to get a post-secondary degree, right? I mean, I saved, for a couple of years. I worked my butt off in the summers because I was told if you want to get a good job, you need a degree. You need a post-secondary degree.
Yep.
Hey, Stuart, kill that music. Well, yeah, it's beautiful, but we don't need the music right now. All right, we need sad music for what we're about to talk about. So what's crazy, though, is that, we were told, go get that degree, and then when you apply, you'll be qualified. Now, I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was just BS, but okay, you look at these positions, marketing positions, or, even working in a museum, they want a university degree. It shows certain qualities, it shows certain this. But employers, we're told if, this was your first line on how to eliminate a potential employee. If they didn't have the piece of paper, they were out. And if you look at numerous job postings today, they still say you need a post-secondary degree, especially in the more quote-unquote qualified. Now, I'm not talking about engineering and medical and all the rest of that. That is obvious. What's not obvious, though, frankly, is this whole notion that, if I wanted to go work in a marketing agency, I needed a degree. And now they're saying, don't get the degree. Come to work for us because we don't have enough employees. So did they, Stuart, just kill the value of, I don't say all, but a chunk of post-secondary education?
Well, I think that, they're getting desperate out there. It seems like all these people going to school in colleges, or who are getting into debt for hundreds of thousands of dollars, think that with their post-secondary degree, they're going to get a job that pays them $500,000 and not have to work crazy hours. But there are a lot of people out there who just want a job, who need to be trained. And I think the employers are doing the right thing. And there used to be, back, and I'm going to use McDonald's because I'm going to talk about McDonald's. Not that that's the ideal place where I want to go and work like Disney, but I think it's important to talk about McDonald's because they were recently with Domino's in the news. Everyone in the restaurant industry is dying to get labor. Now, this is non-skilled labor is what they call it. I don't know about you, but I couldn't hold a tray with 20 drinks on it and not spill all 20. But again, and I couldn't serve a bar and flip bottles around. But I think that, it depends on the employer and how genuine the employer is offering, right? Like McDonald's used to have McDonald's College, used to have an education system. They used to pay for you to go to college. Now it's such a franchise business that, well, McDonald's wants to replace you with a computer. They want to replace you with a robot. And over the next decade, I don't think there are going to be too many people working at McDonald's. So, yes, I think big companies that are looking for marketing people, right? Podcasting people can go and get on the job training that a post-secondary education I don't think would do very much for.
Yeah, but let's hold on. But let's discuss this point here, okay? Because what you just brought up is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, if we're talking about a post-secondary education as strictly being an in-class education, then okay, I could get this sort of on the job training, call it whatever you want. But post-secondary education, it's not supposed to just give you knowledge. It's supposed to help you think.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, when you work in a company, you're thinking the way they want you to think. And I'll tell you a fast story about this, okay? I went to apply to work at KPMG in consulting. And I'll tell you, there's another story that goes with it. And I'll tell you that later on. And I went and I was like, okay, I was like the oldest guy they were interviewing for the position. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, you know what? We like the fact that you have 25 years of, being in business and doing the work and whatever. We finished the interview, and he says to me, you're not going to be going into the second round. I said, well, why not? He goes, well, you don't know how to think like we do. I said, wait a minute, I don't understand. Don't you want broader thinking? And they went, no, you have to think like we do within our structure and whatever. So the whole notion of post-secondary education was supposed to help you think broadly, structurally, methodically. And here you're going to go to a company, they're going to tell you, well, yeah, that's nice, but this is how we work, especially those bigger companies. I'm not talking about technology companies like a Google or whatever that they do allow that creativity and they allow a lot of that kind of stuff. But go to a McKinsey, go to a Boston Consulting Group, go to all these guys. If you don't think like them and work the way they do and structure the way they do, they won't hire you.
That's a problem. And if they hire you, are you being, temporarily being hired, or are you being hired for good? Like, again,
nothing's permanent anymore, Stuart. The days of of our parents' generation where they went to work for 25, 30, 35 years in the same place, that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, right now, the average employee is flipping jobs like mad.
Well, here's the McRobot who's flipping burgers. I mean, look, I mean, it is a joke, by me putting that up there. But I mean, I'm going to be brutally honest. Do I think a post-secondary education is as important as it was 25 years ago? And the answer is going to be no. I think the education 25 years ago that was a staple to get a job and get a career is gone. And, if you're going to be a doctor, I would say yes. I wouldn't want you to be a doctor who got trained on the job. Maybe I do, because that's what MASH units basically were during World War II.
But hold on. But that has to, but doctors still go through a stage, or go through like they do. They do have on-site training, okay, but they spend 4 years in medical school to learn all this, and then they go into hospitals and they do what they have to do. I'm not talking about those folks. And what you're talking about, Stuart, in terms of like, McDonald's and what have you, you're 100% right. It's being replaced by automated. My son worked at a bank, and imagine he was a consumer banking. He was helping consumers with their deposits and whatever. And the managers told him, this is the message you're driving to customers. Let me show you how to deposit your check at home with an app. You don't have to come into the bank.
Yep.
And the people would say, but that's getting rid of your job. And every employee said, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
But to hire people to the bank, though, you needed some sort of education. You just couldn't walk in the door. So, like, if you're going to automate it, this is where certain positions I get it, but to say like we have a skill shortage and we don't care about degrees anymore. What's gonna happen with people who spend all that time getting degrees? Are they out?
Well,
do they have an advantage?
Look, I mean, you have a kid who's doing an alternative post-secondary education at this time, right?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I got 3 kids and they're about to get started, but I mean, I know so many people that are just like, hey man, I just want to make it. I need to make one big hit. I need to survive until I make one big chunk of money and I get to go surfing. I have a very good friend. He's a doctor. Yeah. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He has 3 boys and a daughter. The boys, they're brilliant, utterly brilliant, right? Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, I got to be brutally honest. One son is an inventor and has made some crazy inventions, which I'm not going to mention because I haven't gotten permission to talk about it.
Right.
But I got to tell you, you know what he does? He gets a group of buddies that he works with, goes out to California, goes surfing for a couple of days,
Hey, look,
comes back, goes to work. He likes his camper. He wants to go up to the mountain and go climbing. And look, Bal is on here, and he's like, I used to work at Cone St. Luke McDonald's back in the 80s, and the companies used to learn about project management, team leadership, and so on. But I'm going to remind you, Bal, if today you were going to do that, that's the guy who's going to put you on an unemployment line.
But Stuart,
That's
I'm going
Nick Robot.
But let me tell you something.
He's cute.
I too worked in the 1980s. I worked in a shoe store, and I told part of the story in one other previous rant.
Yep.
And my job was my job would have been could be replaced eventually by it's being replaced by Zappos. You don't need to be there as much as anymore as it used to be. And I learned a lot about inventory and managing stores and what have you. But I learned the functional part of it. I didn't learn the strategic part of it. I didn't learn to think about it. And so I think that there's a lot that still can come out of a post-secondary education. But one thing is the problem, and I think that employers are sending a different message, is universities, you're no longer as relevant as you think you are. And I'll give you a concrete example. I said this, I went back and I got my MBA 9 years ago.
Yep.
And when I wanted to apply to these places, these consulting firms, the folks over at Career Services are telling me how to write out a resume. Now I'd been in 25 years of working, and she's telling me you got to shrink your whole career into one page, and you have to put your GPA in the top right-hand page. And I went, no, I won't. No, I won't. And she says, well, you won't get a job. I said, you know what? You're talking to me as if I'm some kid who just started. Can you think broader? And she says, well, if you want to work in consulting, they only want to see your GPA. And that's their first line of triage. Yep. So I met the VP of HR who was then from McKinsey here in Montreal. And I asked him outright, I said, why wouldn't you consider my resume if I don't put the GPA? By the way, my GPA wasn't high enough anyways. They wanted a 3.8. Mine was 3.4. But I said, if you went further down.
You're 3 shame on you, David. 3.4.
I know. But wait a second. If you went further down in my resume, I support my GPA with experience. And he said, you'd never get there. So the universities align themselves with these employers with the stupid rules. But the education, to me, it's like message to Career Services, you're backwards. Message to the education system in the universities, you're archaic. You're not making yourself attractive enough anymore. I mean, I'm sorry. Do you seriously think you need to give business school students a textbook that's 10 years old? Okay, accounting practices have not changed. The basics of accounting still remain, and I could pull out my textbook from 30 years ago, and it's the same for the most part.
Well, in the finance industry,
more than that.
Yeah, but the finance industry, again, I'm a financial advisor. Again, I'm not giving any financial, legal, or accounting advice at this time. But, fact of the matter is, the 65, 66, Series 7, I mean, the percentage of failing grades on those exams come straight out of college? It's massive. If you go through a program like an MSSB, a Goldman Sachs, you have like a 95% of passing. If you come from out of college, you got less than 50. Maybe it's because you're being put into an environment of business. You're following and chatting a financial professional. Yes, you're learning the business, the concepts.
Stuart, but I think the problem becomes, and I'm telling you as someone who's still in the McGill system, guys, I'm sorry to tell you, but the system is archaic. I applaud schools out there. There are some colleges and universities that have said, you know what, we're scrapping the old way and we're going to talk. Listen, the people who are teaching haven't been in practice in years. I'm sorry. I had a professor. He's still teaching at McGill. He talks as if it's still 1987. We're way past that. But he's still doing that.
Let's talk about the higher ed system for a second, because I think this is something that is also going to be changing. Because what's the purpose of higher education in these academic institutions? Now everything's online. Why, a teacher?
There's a reason.
Let me finish my point. And we're getting towards the end, and we got off topic. But I just want to say this: if you went to Harvard in Massachusetts, or if you went to Harvard Online, you get a degree that says Harvard, and it's identical.
Correct.
It looks the same. You know what? I'm not a big fan of Harvard. Didn't get in, so I'm not a big fan because I'm a alma mater. But I got to tell you, they actually got something. Because you know what? Education and the price of education, as we started this rant, and that is it more opportunistic to be trained, as in, learning to be a hairdresser, learning to be a plumber, learning to be an HVAC person, because again, these services are still going to be needed, right? So all these marketing careers are going to get gobbled up into AI, which is, they don't even know it yet. But the reality is, I am totally in agreement with you, David. The guy that needs to learn HVAC doesn't need to learn it in the classroom first and foremost, needs to learn it in the field. I agree.
But I'll tell you something, and with this, let's wrap this up, folks. If the universities don't adjust, this will be the new norm. I'll tell you that the enrollment will go down. People will learn on the site, and we will see less and less people getting so-called post-secondary degrees because the education is not up to date. I'm sorry. It is far from up to date. And wakey universities, you're out. Harvard, by the way, I got to tell you, my niece did it online. The biggest difference between doing it online and physical is she had zero social, the physical contact, the experience at Harvard, but you still got a degree that said Harvard on it. And you know what? It still takes you to places. Yeah. That said, if I need skilled labor, Harvard, if I'm choosing between a Harvard education and skilled, you got it. It's scary. Folks, we're at the end of our quarter hour as the music comes on. We're going to be back on Friday, noon Eastern, here on Facebook Live. It'll be Free Flow Friday. And Stuart and I will be just unbelievably prepped to talk about some of the crazy crap that's been going on in the past week. So looking forward to seeing you all. Hey, guys, let me tell you, all your favorite podcast places have now the Rant Network. Please download it, share, comment, Facebook. We love you. Go to our YouTube channel. Please go to our Rant Network page, our network, rantnetwork.com. Looking forward to seeing you all on Friday.
I'm going to end the stream, but you know what? We're still with you. Follow us, share us, like us. We need your support. That's all we ask. And we'll talk to you. Share.